Welcome to MBJ's Reflection with Jay. You know, I love doing podcasting because I realized that in podcasting, that's when I'm able to actually get out of my head. I've been a creative my entire life. And sometimes as the creator, it's one of the loneliest places, I think, like on the planet, because you have all of these thoughts, you have all of these visions, and you are so ignited and on fire and inspired by like everything. And then you share it because of your excitement that is in your heart, only to be met with someone who projects their own doubts or their own fears or their own insecurities, their own stuff, y'all. And it took me a long time to get to a point where I actually understood that it wasn't necessarily that my ideas weren't good. It wasn't necessarily that people didn't adopt them. It wasn't that my ideas are going to shift the world. It's not that wasn't true. It was that message was for me. So if you are like me and you identify as a creative trailblazer and you are out here trying to find your way, this reflection is just for you. So I have the honor to have on a fellow podcaster, Ronald Lee Jr. from Minding My Creative Business. He has a wonderful platform where he teaches creatives how to do just that, mind their creative businesses. He, a fellow creator himself, has learned how to put a process and a procedure on the creative process now.
These time blocks for you to be able to maximize productivity so you can be more efficient is you want to limit distractions. So you might want to put your phone somewhere else, right? You may want to limit how many tabs you got open on your desktop, right? You want to just limit distractions. You might want to put your phone on silent or whatever the case may be so that things aren't distracting you and encouraging you to procrastinate.
For all my creatives out here, and if you are too like me and like, okay, I have to have like a smidge of ADHD. I have to because I got to. If you identify with that, he helps with those processes and actually helps us creatives really formulate our thoughts and put things in practice, and we show up the way that we want to show up and get out of our head. You know what I mean? Because oftentimes we're our worst enemy and our worst critic because we then start to project our fears onto ourselves, and then we become stagnated and we don't move. So in this new season of just being bold and being brave and being the most authentic self that I can possibly be, I think is fitting that we start these reflections with the podcast. So today, like I said, I was going through the podcast and I was looking through all of just these amazing clips that we talked about. We talked about how lonely the road is being a trailblazer. But that means you got to fail in front of everybody.
Oh, definitely. No, like that. And I'm one of those people where it's like, I have thick skin. I mean, you have to be, because I'm very bold and direct. So you bold and direct person, you have to have thick skin because people are going to respond to that in a certain way. But my skin has definitely gotten thicker over time because it doesn't feel good to be the trailblazer all the time.
It doesn't. It doesn't because, being the trailblazer feels like you got a blindfold on in the dark and you try to feel your way. Yeah. And then, all of a sudden you look up and then people, they subscribe to whatever it is that you're doing. Yet and still, you still feeling your way in the dark. Exactly. It's like, I have no idea where I'm going, y'all. Like,
exactly.
And so that the feeling of the trailblazer is an isolated feeling
Definitely.
oftentimes. Oh, yeah. I can't speak for everybody. I certainly can't. But I know that just in my conversations with myself and my conversations with other creatives, I felt lonely. I felt like this was an incredibly lonely road because, you are moving along and trying to move forward and in a vision. And without any type of guide or roadmap or mentor or any instruction manual at all. And so when you don't have these instructions, you just out here and you just like, okay, I'm just going to trust my heart. I'm going to trust the spirit. I'm going to trust the Lord. I'm just going to trust. And then the magical thing starts to happen when you really, truly believe it yourself. You really start to motivate people and people start to become attracted to your essence and start to, adopt your ideologies. And when they start to adopt your ideologies, they then start to impart their opinions sometimes. And if we're not completely sure in who we are, then that creative spark that we have, the reason why we were brought here in the first place, in order to change and shift the world, that can become tainted. So, one of the things that we talked about is, although this is a lonely road, we have to make sure that we always remain self-aware.
What do you have to work on in order to be in a place of such freedom where you are just out here popping out and showing ninjas?
A lot of self-awareness, right? Because that's the thing. It's like, before you can get there, you have to be aware of where you are, right? Your current state is kind of like being at the mall and you stop at the directory and says you are here. You got to find out where you're at first, right? So then when we find out where you are and then where you're trying to get to, then we can start making some adjustments. But a lot of people, they don't take the time for that self-awareness, right? That's one of the biggest things, to where I see, whether it's creatives or young people, whoever I'm working with, they're not self-aware, right? So if you don't know who you are, it's kind of difficult to, help you.
That's true.
And self-awareness doesn't happen overnight. Self-awareness takes years to happen for some people. I mean, it took me about 42 years to truly feel like I'm actually self-aware, because I had to go through some things in order to get to a place where I really feel like I know who I am. But not only do I know who I am, I don't have to apologize for that person. That person isn't too big. That person isn't too extra. That person isn't too bold. That person isn't too much. That person doesn't work too hard. That person doesn't sleep too little. That person is who they are, exactly who they are. And they're the person that they were created to be. And so being true to yourself and understanding that alone will make you a trailblazer that just quits giving a fuck, quite honestly. I mean, why do we even care anyway? Why do we care what people think and what people say? Because that's why we're here. We're the trailblazers. We are meant to color outside of the box, outside of the lines, outside of everything. So the trailblazer, the loneliest of the lonely roads, we don't have to be by ourselves anymore. I was so inspired by this conversation to really operate in my creative energy like I had never operated before. And I sat with myself and I sat in meditation. And I have been on this journey of studying and learning astrology. And, it's been a piece of me that's been like, I'm going to keep a little of that secret. Actually, I kept a lot of it secret because I'm a pretty private person and I don't really over disclose. And then, that's a layer that's like close to my heart. And because it's close to my heart, it's like anything that's close, I really try to protect. And then I can't lie, just being programmed with different just indoctrinations and ideologies and things like that. I just didn't know if I was sure enough to stand in my own authentic truth of saying that, yeah, I've been studying this for some years now and I'm a straight up and down like astrologer. Like I'm really good at it. Kind of, sort of, I'm getting there. And to be able to be even that true into who I am, you know what I mean? Made me do something that was crazy, y'all. So I stepped into my authentic self and based off of this whole, conversation that I had with Ronald Lee from Minding My Creative Business. And I created something extremely special. I was inspired to create something extremely special. And I created this intuitive soul guide that combines your most prominent energy signatures that came with you when you were born. I combined those together to help give you clarity on what it is that you were supposed to do when you came here. What is your soul's purpose? What's your mission? Who are you supposed to touch? Who are you supposed to impact? Who are you as a person? And I'm telling you guys, I did this intuitive soul guide on myself, on my friends, on my best friend, on my bestest of the best friends, and on my family. And I was like overly just blown away. I was blown away because, for starters, the placements that I saw that were within me. Number one, I already knew it. I felt it. I knew that I was supposed to be a motivational person that was supposed to have some type of a public identity that was meant to go through some traumatic experiences, and those experiences would ultimately formulate the person that would be this great inspiration to some masses at some point in time. I had in church, I'd received that as a prophecy. And then time went on and I had to, go through and endure. I was a teenage mother. I, went rogue and left corporate America, started a business, and had to learn how to navigate the hard times with business ups and downs and understanding who I was as a person in leadership. I had to lose my sister through a murder that was those types of things you never anticipate coming, but that was just not even in the cards, I would say, like literally and figuratively, like I didn't feel like I saw those. But ultimately, all of those things brought me to this place today. I'm sitting in the building of my t-shirt printing shop. Upstairs in the podcast studios that my best friend and I have put together and we've curated and created for those who are interested in checking out podcast studios, the pods. You guys, y'all got to check this place out. Once I did my intuitive soul guide on myself, I gave myself permission to live in the now, be as creative as I wanted to be, actually operate and do what my heart wanted it to do, and gave myself permission to fail and make mistakes, because nobody said it was going to be perfect, but after each failure, you get closer and closer to the victory. So failing forward. So I encourage you all today to fail forward as many times as it takes in order to get to that finish line, because we are all here to take over our little part of this world.
The one thing? Okay, so the one thing, phenomenal book by Gary Keller. He has this saying where it says, what's the one thing that if you were to do it today, in such to where it will make everything else either easier or everything else unnecessary.
Okay.
So it's like starting there.
Right.
So then once again, you're taking this big thing that you're doing and then you're narrowing it down to where it's like one thing at a time, opposed to trying to do everything.
So in light of the suggestion that Ronald Lee Jr. from Reminding My Creative Business had on the book from Gary Keller, The One Thing, I wanted to read a brief synopsis done by chat, girl. Y'all know we got to use chat whenever we can. Done by chat. Just a paraphrased version of this book, just so that we can have an understanding of what it is. The One Thing by Gary Keller is a productivity game changer that teaches you to cut through the noise of overwhelm by focusing on one of the most important tasks that makes everything else easier or unnecessary. It's about simplifying your to-do list, mastering time management, and creating momentum by prioritizing what truly matters. At its core, the book challenges you to ask daily, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? And then build your success by doing that consistently. To all my trailblazers out there, I hope that you have taken away a piece of Reflections with Jay. Make sure that you tune in for our next MBJ podcast, Reflections with Jay. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.